Lights, camera, action.
And the winner is...
Welcome back to day 3, or movie 3 of quarantine. Oscar Real Movie Podcast here, and also a happy birthday to Haley Schmidt, turning the big 3-0 today.
Yeah.
She's officially
I'm
old.
30.
It's going to start losing your memory. I know, I started doing that, getting creaky, things like that. It's all downhill from here at 30. But happy birthday.
Thank you. I've been really excited to turn 30. I know it's really not that big of a deal. It's just another day, but at the same time, I think it's, I don't know, it's kind of cool. So it's been good. We're quarantined at home. It's snowing right now, which kind of sucks, but,
Yay.
you know, whatever. We'll order dinner for delivery tonight, do something special, and yeah, pretend that it's like a normal birthday. No, It's not.
We'll get dressed up
Yeah.
to eat dinner
Yeah, so
in our
it's fine.
kitchen.
It'll be fun.
Yep. But today, we've got the movie Rounders. We watched it the other day, but you're listening to the review today. This is a movie that I saw a lot growing up. For whatever reason, my dad really liked this movie, and it's about Texas Hold'em, stars Matt Damon and Edward Norton. It's kind of become cult classic, might not be the right term for it, but it's grown some legs since it was originally released.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've seen this movie a number of times. It was on Netflix, by the way.
Yep.
What did you'd never seen it, right?
I had seen bits and pieces of it, but hadn't seen it from start to finish. But it was really enjoyable. I like poker movies, like card movies. I think those can be really compelling. And
what's another card movie or poker movie?
I'm trying to think. Was it called 21? It came out when we were in high school. That one's
Kevin,
really good.
With that guy, Kevin.
Yeah.
You know who.
But it's like Ray, he takes like Harvard kids or something like that, and they go and count cards.
It's not poker, but yeah, it's
blackjack.
21.
Yeah. So I think that those can be really compelling stories. So I thought this was enjoyable. I was gonna say something else, but now I don't remember.
Okay, well, while you think of it, I guess the gist of this movie is, there are some cliches in the story here. Like the main character starts out on top of the world, falls down, and then redeems himself by the end. But there's a lot of good stuff. Just because it's cliche doesn't mean it's bad. But the gist of this story is Matt Damon plays Mike McDermott, who is not a big-time poker player, but a local, like a good poker player in New York. And the movie opens with him taking all of his money, like $30,000, his whole life savings, everything, and going
his law school tuition.
Yeah,
he's trying to put himself through law school right now.
Everything.
Yep. Yeah.
And he goes to an underground poker game run by John Malkovich's character, KGB, who is... I like John Malkovich, but this is probably one of the worst accents that I've ever heard in a movie.
It's pretty bad.
It's not great. It's not a great accent, but whatever. And he goes and plays gets on a table there with KGB and a couple other people, and in the end he's got a monster hand, and goes all in and loses everything to KGB, so he lost all of his money. And after that he vows to never play poker again. Edward Norton plays his childhood best friend who gets out of jail, and when he comes out of jail he kind of gets Mike back into the game of poker, and then along with that, though, he gets Mike involved with all the debts that he owes. So in the end, Mike gets back into poker to get him and Worm, who's Edward Norton's character, out of this debt. And then at the end of the movie, Worm kind of doesn't think they're going to do it, so he skips town, and then Mike goes and plays KGB one last time to win enough money to pay off his debts, and he ends up being able to do it. And then he goes to Vegas to try to follow his dreams of being a Vegas poker player.
Yeah, he talks a lot about like wanting to be, like he kind of aspires to like play in the World Series of Poker and stuff. So kind of working on his skills. The thing I remember that I meant to say earlier is that Matt Damon narrates a lot of this movie too, which you and I are always big fans of that. So I think it worked really well in this movie.
Yeah,
so I liked that aspect.
I had that written down because that happens throughout the movie, but early on they kind of use it as a, what's the word term for it, like disposition, or they use it to explain a lot of things about poker, because this movie came out in 1998. It was right before, it was kind of good timing for this movie. It was right before the big boom of poker. I think you remember when we were in high school in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, whatever. Poker was huge. Like Hold'em,
Texas Hold'em was like
on
the biggest
ESPN.
thing.
It was everywhere, and this was kind of right before that boom. So when it got really popular, a lot of people looked at this movie as like the start of that huge boom, and a lot of people's look at the life of being a poker player and kind of like why it got so popular. It kind of helped each other out. The boom of Hold'em being popular in the world helped this movie become popular, but I think this kind of started that renaissance a little bit too. So, but the beginning of the movie, he narrates what's going on the whole time, so he kind of, the thing I like is when he's playing KGB in that hand before he actually loses everything in the beginning, he talks about how he wants to keep KGB in the hand, but he doesn't want to scare him off. So he's like, a normal guy, I would bet light and let them and draw them into the hand, but KGB's too smart for that, so I got to go big. Like, how he explained some of that stuff with the narration was really good. I like that too.
Yeah, I really like that part, because you're right. Like he, even later when like he goes to like back on campus as law school, and there's like judges and professors and other lawyers that have kind of a small stakes poker game, and he goes through, he's like, oh, okay, well, I watched all the people as the cards were dealt, and this is probably what they have, made what they have, and so it's cool to see like how he's thinking about all of their hands and stuff.
Did you like the characters like Worm, Edward Norton? I mean, this movie wasn't very popular when it came out, I think, because the two main actors, Matt Damon and Edward Norton, they both had bigger movies that came out the same exact year. Matt Damon had Saving Private Ryan come out, and Edward Norton had American History X come out. But I think they're both pretty good in this movie.
Yeah, I really like them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because, you got Matt Damon, who's trying to do the right thing, going to law school, nice guy, and then Worm, or Edward Norton, is like the guy who's been, he was in jail, got out, owes a bunch of debts. He's always looking for that edge, doesn't necessarily always do the right thing, so I don't know, they play off each other pretty well.
Yeah, no, I think they're a good pair, and it was kind of fun seeing, like, after Worm gets out of jail, that the two of them, like, ran a few, like, rackets and a few different, like, poker games and stuff, so
that was cool. Some of my favorite scenes in the movie are when when Worm and him are at a table together, and they're running their racket, like signaling each other, and so they're at like a college like poker room, so like they're like, these guys aren't going to do anything to us, so it's like they're just running all these signals and scams on them, and he's like, and Worm plays the loser to perfection, and it's just like a montage of Edward Norton looking like, running his hand through his hair and being like, fuck you and your endless string of boats, you fucking asshole. Like, he's just playing it off really well.
Yep.
And I like it later on when they're going on their run of like, they have to raise $15,000 in 5 days of playing poker, and it's just them popping in at these different like games, like at a cigar club, and then at this diner, and at a golf shop. Like they're just trying to raise as much money as quickly as possible. They're going to all these different like games where they can play.
Yep.
Those are kind of cool. Not too many. It happened a couple times, but I feel like in poker movies you get a lot of that cliche, like, oh, I got pocket aces, or oh, I got pocket kings. You get like the winning hand is a royal flush, which would never happen.
No, right.
That does kind of happen in the beginning. KGB beats him with pocket aces. But other than that, there isn't really a cliche hand there, you know, which is kind of nice. There are a couple cliches in the movie. Like I said, his story arc is top of the mountain, falls down, and builds himself back up, which happens a lot. And you've kind of got the cliche unsupportive girlfriend. Mm-hmm. She was kind of maybe the only annoying part of the movie. And she kind of falls in, comes around by the end of the movie, but throughout it, she's kind of this, you promised me you would never play poker again. Don't play poker. Don't play poker. Like, if she even thinks he played poker, he's, like, in trouble. And it's like, geez. I don't know what you thought of her, but sometimes I was like, okay, let's calm down a little bit.
I mean, honestly, I kind of understand why, you know, she was part of the story. Like, you needed someone else in there to kind of, you know, because Worm is always going to be like, hey, dude, like, we got to play these games. We got to win this money, blah, blah, blah. And so you have her on the other side being like, hey, you got to cut this out. Like, you can't keep losing all your money. But at the end of the day, like, it didn't really have a big impact. Like, he still played. He still played, and he still helped out Worm with it, like, you know, his loan sharks and stuff. So, I don't know. Not the most important storyline, I don't think.
No. But she's like, I'm looking at the cover. She's like on the cover of the movie poster. So it just made me think of that. But this movie, so like I said, it came out in 1998. This movie has long been in the works of getting a sequel.
Oh, really?
And apparently it's going to happen.
Okay.
So I guess knowing that it's probably going to get a sequel, what would you like to see happen in a sequel to this movie, if you have any thoughts on that? Like, what would be a good sequel to this? Because I never like it when they just do the same thing over again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I'm trying to think, because it's like you said, at the end of the movie, he goes off to Vegas, and I feel like it would be, we've talked about cliches a little bit, I feel like it'd be too cliche to just, you know, hop back to, what's his name, Mike? Is that his character's name?
Yeah.
Like, in present day, and he's, like, super successful or something. Like, I don't think I'd necessarily want to see that, but then on the flip side, it's like, okay, if we have him kind of struggling and have a redemption arc again, well, then that's the same exact story.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd be interested to see what they could possibly do with it.
Yeah,
what do you think? The
only thing I could think of is they go the Hustler route, that Paul Newman movie from the 60s. So that movie came out. It's almost exactly the same story, just with pool versus poker. His character loses a bunch of money to Minnesota Fats, and then builds himself back up, and then beats him in the end. It is actually, it's very, very similar. And they made a sequel to that. So that The Hustler came out in 1960, and The Color Money, which is its sequel, came out in 1986, I want to say.
Yeah.
Directed by Martin Scorsese. And Paul Newman finally won his Oscar for that movie, too, even though that is not his best role. He probably shouldn't have won, but it was one of those, you've never won an Oscar before, and you're one of the best actors ever, so here you go.
Yeah.
But in the sequel, he's, obviously, it's real-time age, right? So it's 20 plus years later, and he's older, his career's pretty much done, but it's been successful. They don't really show it, but they just say you've had a successful career. And he takes on a protege, Tom Cruise, who's in it, and he shows him the ropes of, like, how to be a good pool player.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they somehow go a route like that. I don't know if you want it to be that similar, where it's almost exactly the same as what they did in that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they do some kind of protege thing. But you got to get Worm in there somehow, too. I felt like his story was kind of unfinished. He gets out of jail, and then they go on this run of poker, and then they get beat up by a bunch of cops who catch them cheating. And Worm is like, all right, see ya, I'm out of town. So I feel like and they don't show him again anymore. I feel like his story's a little unfinished, and maybe you show something with Worm. Maybe you can do something with that.
For sure, yeah.
But, then another example, I think, is The Big Lebowski was really successful, and then they just came out with a recent sequel or spin-off with the Jesus Rolls. And and that apparently is terrible. So I don't want them to maybe just do a Worm-only movie, because maybe it might not be that great. But I don't know. I'm thinking maybe something where Mike takes on a protege after having a successful career, or maybe it's something more Worm-focused, but Mike is still there. But I don't know. It'd be interesting. But I know that that's been years and years in the works, and from what I can tell, it is going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see what it's about. Or maybe it's about different characters all around.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Is it going to be the same writer? Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Because, the writers were Brian Koppelman and David Levin, and this was their first script ever. I think Brian had been a poker player before in life and was able to sit down and get this done, and it was the first script he ever did.
Very cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what turns out in the sequel.
Mm-hmm. So, have you had time to think of a score for this movie?
I'd give this like an 8.2. I think it's a really good movie, really entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely worth a watch. I mean, it's rated R, but it's not too
probably
graphic
language.
or vulgar.
Language is probably it. There's some boobs. They go to strip clubs. There's a little boob action in this movie, but not a lot.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think, probably in the 8.4, 8.5 range. We'll just say like 8.5 for now, just because it is a classic. I do like this movie a lot. I remember when this came out and I was a kid, I watched it a bunch, and that kid thing where I asked for a Texas Hold'em set for my birthday, and you get it, and then we'd play on, like, we had a pool table, so we'd play cards with, like, my friends on the pool table and, like, act like we're, the big shots and stuff, so.
Well, you're betting pennies and dimes and stuff.
Yeah, or just nothing. We just have chips and we aren't playing for anything,
Yep.
But yeah, I talk about the Big Lebowski and Jesus Rolls. John Turturro's in this movie, and I like him a lot. He's kind of that, not father figure, but like he's the voice of reason for Mike when he's kind of getting in trouble. He's like, okay, maybe don't do that. But in the end, Mike says like you play it too safe, and he's got that saying in the end when he's thinking about walking away. He's like, I told Worm that you can't lose what you don't put in the middle, but you can't win a lot either. So he like kind of goes for it.
Yeah, and like you said, he's a voice of reason, which sometimes like the girlfriend kind of plays that role, but he's also like he offers help too. He's like, hey, like I got this truck route, like do this to earn yourself some money because I know you just lost everything. So he's a little more helpful in terms of like practical stuff too. So he was a good character.
And I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I also like it when all the big time card players, not big time, but the underground card players are at Atlantic City, and they just they're there to just take money away from tourists who think it's cool to play poker.
Right, yeah.
And they just go on this montage of them beating all these tourists because they have these nervous tics and tells that they just portray that are pretty easy for these people to read. So that was always pretty funny scene.
Well, and I think too, like this movie's gotta have one of the best like opening lines, where he says I don't remember it verbatim, but he's like, if you haven't spotted a sucker at the table in the first 30 minutes, you're the sucker.
You are the sucker.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good one-liners in this movie.
Yeah. And I think that comes from the narration. Like that's something that's enjoyable that comes from that aspect of it for sure.
Martin Landau is in this too in a smaller role. He's pretty good. He's Mike's like mentor at law school who kind of helps him out at the end of the movie too. Pretty good cast. What's her name? She's Jean Grey in the original trilogy of X-Men.
Yeah, she's in this too.
It starts with an F. Of course, she's not on the initial IMDb page here. Got a how is it? Jansen?
Famke Jensen.
Famke Jensen. She's in this too in a smaller role. So, yeah, overall, a really underrated movie. It's on Netflix. I definitely recommend people to go see it. Trivia here. So Worm was originally supposed to smoke, but avid non-smoker Edward Norton refused. They actually build that into the movie where they say it a couple times where when he's in jail, he's winning cigarettes off the other inmates, and they're like, "You don't even smoke, Worm," and he like throws all of his winnings away. So it's kind of funny. So yeah, that was the last movie we watched and reviewed. We're watching, or we already did watch Hook, so that'll be the next one. Another childhood classic of mine, directed by Steven Spielberg with Robin Williams in it. So make sure to subscribe. Follow us along as we are quarantined for at least 14 days and are watching a different movie. Follow us on social media at OscarReelPod on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, make sure to review and rate the podcast as well. That helps us move up in the rankings and become more relevant so other people can listen to us. So follow along. And from Matt and Haley, happy birthday to Haley.
Thanks again.
And we'll see you next time.